I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
What up, what up? This is your boy Rob Clark, welcoming you to the 22 November Network. Get ready for another exciting edition of the Lone Gunman Podcast, featuring me, that's right, your boy Rob Clark, coming at you. Stay tuned. Be right there. What is up, everybody out there? This is your boy Rob Clark. And before we get into the show today, I have a special message from my friends Greg Parker and Frankie Vegas of ReopenKennedyCase.org. There is a special going on right now till the end of the month, which is almost up. You can get $30 off your total price of admission. They are having a JFK conference. It's never too late for justice. Because justice is never too late. That's my fault. Saturday, 21st of November 2015, Sunday, 22nd November 2015. Both days, 8:30 to 4:30, at the Mercure Treasury Gardens in Melbourne, Australia. I know it's a ways away, but it is in Australia. So make your plans to attend now. You're not going to have much to choose from in the States this year. You can either do Judy Baker and her Cuckoo Conference. Lancer was pretty lackluster last year. And quite frankly, the lineup that they have so far down in Australia is looking pretty damn good to me. Go check it out for yourself at ReopenKennedyCase.org. You can also find them on Facebook. They have all the information on their Facebook page as well. Just go in Facebook and do a search for ReopenKennedyCase.org, and I'll put the link up with the show. And now, without further ado, I bring you part 2 of Mr. Adam Gorightly. Hello, and welcome to the show, everybody. This is episode number 48 of the Lone Gunman Podcast. I am back today with noted author and crackpot historian himself, Mr. Adam Gorightly. Adam is joining me again today. If you haven't heard the last one, go back and listen to the first one first, because we're kind of doing this chronologically, or something like that, in a chaotic, discordian way. Anyway, welcome back to the show, Adam. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me back. Boy, this week went by fast. It seemed like I was only talking to you a few minutes ago.
You must be tripping, man. Must be tripping. Oh, man. You never know. You never know. Put that curtain back together. So let's get right into it, Adam. There's been a lot of speculation recently from unnamed persons, shall we say, about their interactions with Kerry Thornley in New Orleans. Actually in the spring of 63 and in the fall of 63. And I'm wondering if you could maybe lay out some kind of a Kerry Thornley timeline about when exactly he was in New Orleans in 1963 and exactly what the hell he was doing there.
61. I mentioned before with his buddy Greg Hill. That was early 61. Then he was there until May of 63, and according to his Warren Commission testimony, and he said the same thing to Garrison's grand jury. He left in early May. He got back in California on May 5th, and he was out there, spent some time with his parents, and he was working and whatnot. Then so he was gone. That's that period when he left New Orleans. He traveled through, he was taking a Greyhound bus, traveled through Texas. That's when Garrison placed him there, making the phony photos. So yeah, I got back to California May 5th and was there. Let's see, what's the timeline? Basically into late August, he went heading back to New Orleans, went through Mexico City, and got back to New Orleans on September 4th of 1963. And of course, then he was there until like mid-December of 63 is when he went to Arlington, Virginia.
Now, you said Mexico City, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a little bit of a coincidence, don't you think, that he would take that route?
Well, yeah, perhaps. What can I say? I'm just laying it out there. I have no evidence that he was up to any skullduggery, but once again, I'll also state that I don't know, I can't say any certitude that he wasn't up to some type of hijinks while he was there. Once again, I doubt it, but coincidences do happen sometimes.
Well, that is true. It's just...
And do we know that Oswald was there? Somebody pretending to be Oswald was there, so... That's
hard to say, too.
These things happen sometimes.
Or were they both there?
Garrison, he was big on that, what he called propinquity, relating, associating people with places and timelines and all of this. He was a master digging up those sort of details.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest word I've read so far this year was in your book, propinquitous, if I'm saying that correctly.
I got that from yours.
I love it. Now, one thing that intrigues me a lot, and you pointed to it in your book too, is the research of John Armstrong and his whole theory about there being a Harvey and there being a Lee. And, Garrison was big on this dual Oswald theory. Several books popped up back then. Richard Popkins' book, The Second Oswald. There's theories that it could have been two people that looked exactly alike. It could have been somebody that resembled him vaguely. Like somebody like William Seymour. Or it could even have been something that even Marina actually knew about, because something you pointed out to in your book was an interview she did early. I forget exactly when. I think you said it was right after the Warren Commission, with a French newspaper or a French magazine, where she said something like, Lee was the nice guy and Harvey was somebody else, or something. I can't remember the exact quote.
I don't remember exactly either, but then it basically said that wasn't the husband I knew that did that, like she could have been alluding to somewhat psychological change he had gone through, or perhaps, as other people have pointed out, she was talking about two different Oswalds.
Yeah, that was interesting to me, because she actually used the name Harvey, which, I've heard that he hated to be called, and then there was another guy that liked to be called that. So the whole damn thing intrigues the hell out of me, because there's a lot of things in John Armstrong's book you can't look away from. He's in two places at once. He's in schools in different states at the same time. He's got him going into the Marine Corps 2 different times. There's just a lot of strange things going on there. And when I first heard Garrison's supposition of Kerry Thornley possibly being one of these guys, I was like, who's this Kerry Thornley guy? I looked a picture up of him, and I'm like, well, this guy doesn't look anything like Lee Oswald. Of course, I was probably looking at one of his later hippie photos, but which brings to mind, I did have one quick aside here, just a personal curiosity about Kerry Thornley. A picture I ran across, looking him up, and I'm sure you know what I'm referring to when I say Kerry Thornley in a chair.
Yeah.
What the hell was that about?
That photo appears. I've done 2 books on Thornley. The first was published in 2003, The Prankster and the Conspiracy, the story of Kerry Thornley and how he met Oswald and inspired the counterculture. And that photo of Kerry having sex with the chair appears. Kerry was he was an oddball. He started that spoof religion, Discordianism, which influenced, to some degree, the Church of the Subgenius. You familiar with those guys?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Another popular spoof religion, if you Google these, you'll find all kinds of stuff on the Church of the Subgenius. And Kerry got involved with the Church of the Subgenius in the 80s, and as a Christmas card one year, he sent out that photo of him fucking. I don't know if he's really screwing a chair or not, but that photo you have seen, and as Reverend Ivan Stay, who runs the Church of the Subgenius, later commented on that photo. He said, Kerry had a love for all things, even chairs.
Yeah, I ran across that. I was like, oh my God, what is he doing? But yeah,
anyway.
these guys, even Kerry Thornley too. I don't know if it's drugs or if it's just people had a lot more time on their hands back then and were a lot more open-minded about things. Because the 60s to me was almost like a modern day Renaissance. It opened up, there was all kinds of shit going on. You had, Kennedy dying, the birth of rock and roll. You had, all these other assassinations, the Vietnam War, the counterculture, drugs were coming onto the scene, rock and roll was coming onto the scene. And that whole time period in itself was just, it must have been kick ass, to actually have lived through it. And to seen all that.
Right in the middle of all that. He was involved in all that stuff. We talk about a little bit about Discordianism. I've written on this subject quite a bit as well, because the co-founder of Discordian, Greg Hill, basically kept archives of all the Discordian materials, and this included Thornley's writings on the Kennedy assassination. All this stuff was passed on to me, which helped me write the book. But anyway, they came up with this spoof religion way back when, and it was a way of kind of poking fun at organized religions and making social commentaries. And, the Bible of Discordianism is the Principia Discordia, or Principia Discordia, if you want to pronounce it the correct Latin way. And they started working on this stuff during that New Orleans period. And according to legend, the first edition of the Principia Discordia, which consisted of 5 copies, was produced after hours on Jim Garrison's mimeograph machine in 1965, 2 years before his investigation started. Thornley and Hill knew one of Garrison's typists there by the name of Lane Caplinger. She's a young lady who also happens to be the sister of Grace Caplinger, who we know nowadays as Grace Zabriskie, the actress who you've seen in a lot of roles. She's been on a lot of movies. Seinfeld, she played Laura Palmer's mother in Twin Peaks.
Oh, right.
Her and Thornley, good friends back in the day. So that's one of those weird things associated with all of this. But so they they started creating this Bible of Discordianism, getting off track from the Kennedy assassination.
That's all right.
Swerve back in that direction a bit here, but so this thing evolved over the years, and it was kind of a countercultural book that a few people saw, and there was new editions they'd update, and it became an art project. The different writers and stuff got involved, like Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea wrote the Illuminatus trilogy. And so it was this collage of stewed different ideas that became the later editions of the Principia Discordia, which once again was this underground manuscript that went on to influence the book, the Illuminatus trilogy. And in the Illuminatus trilogy, which is the crazy science fiction conspiracy three-part trilogy, they mention the Principia Discordia quite a bit in that book. Illuminatus became pretty popular once again with the hippie conspiracy subculture, and people started talking about, they assumed that the Principia Discordia was this made-up book they're talking about in this in Illuminatus. And interestingly enough, the first book of Illuminatus is dedicated to Carrie Thornley and Greg Hill. And so these names got entered into subculture during that period, and people started wondering if that really was a book. And a year or two later, that was like 75, the Illuminatus came out. There was a more mainstream publication of the Principia Discordia. So, that was part of Carrie Thornley's legacy. But, during, following, like in 65, even 64, 65, he was into libertarianism and was editing a libertarian newsletter called The Innovator. And Carrie, he'd been portrayed as this rabid right-winger by Garrison. He was framed like that, but Carrie was more into anarchy and libertarianism. So he was more of an anarcho-libertarian, as they call him, more into individual liberties. He wasn't extreme right-winger as he's been characterized. And he got involved in this movement where he was trying to bring some of the better parts of the libertarian movement and mesh that with like the counterculture movement. And he'd have parties at his house in LA. This is like 66, around there, where he'd bring his hippie friends over with his more conservative libertarian friends, and they'd have long discussions into the night and smoke weed and maybe drop a little something. So, Carrie was trying to bridge a gap there. And same thing, with having conversations with Oswald and all these crazy people. He was an intellectual who liked to entertain different ideas and theories. He got into psychedelics, which might have led to some of his later psychological problems. He got involved in the sexual revolution. All of this stuff was going on in '67, and he got enmeshed in the Garrison investigation. And so, in a lot of ways, Carrie Thornley, he's a big influence on the counterculture. Most people, when they look back at the '60s counterculture, his name isn't the first one to pop up on the radar, but he interacted with a lot of those counterculture people back in the day, and definitely had an influence on that whole period.
Yeah, he was counterculture before counterculture was cool. Back. Yeah. Now let's get back into a little bit back in New Orleans, and tell me more about this Barbara Reed lady.
Barbara Reed, interestingly enough, was a member of, talking about the spoof religion Discordianism, and their organization was the Discordian Society. This was kind of a joke thing where they play around with these ideas. Getting off track here again, but the whole thing with Discordianism is I need to cover this ground before we get to Barbara Reed. But when Thornley and Greg Hill came up with the whole Discordian thing, it came from conversations they had in that bowling alley long ago in 1958 in Southern California, where they started discussing why is there so much chaos? Why are things so screwed up? And they were talking about how perceived order in the world, there really was no order. That's just man's perception. That they lay over a truly chaotic universe, that there is some type of order with militaries and political bodies and all of this, but at the end of the day, there is no order. That's just man's perception of things. We pretend to bring order to our universe,
Right.
but at the end of the day, it's just a truly chaotic universe. And so they got talking. Thornley asked Ray Hill, what we need is our own God for chaos. All the other deities actually bring order to the universe, but in a truly chaotic universe, we need our own God. And Ray Hill said, well, there already is one. She's the goddess of confusion from Greek mythology, whose name is Eris, the Greek goddess of chaos and discord. Hence, the birth of Discordianism. Okay, now we'll get back to New Orleans. So they were playing around with these ideas, and different people joined the Discordian Society during that period, and one of them was Barbara Reed, oddly enough, who later became the key witness against Thornley. If you dig into the House Select Committee assassination files, you'll come up with some excerpts from the first edition of the Principia Discordia, and also in that is the membership certificate of Barbara Reed into the Discordian Society. So it's pretty damn crazy, but Barbara Reed, she was part of the scene there. She knew Carrie Thornley liked to hang out at the Bourbon House restaurant, as did other folks associated with the Garrison investigation. In fact, Reed was good friends with Andrew Mumu Skiambra, who was the assistant district attorney to Garrison. And according to some information I've read, Barbara Reed was also close with Jim Garrison. Rake Hill, who was Carrie's friend, part of that scene, claimed that Barbara Reed told him that she had had an affair with Jim Garrison. All of this was going on. So,
Wow.
and when the Garrison investigation got rolling, boy, it's taken a long time to talk about who Barbara Reed is. But probably should say that in '67 is when Thornley got involved with the Garrison investigation, and David Lifton knew, of course, he knew Thornley and he knew Garrison, and he informed Garrison that Thornley had information on somebody who was a potential suspect in the case, John Rene Heindel. And so Garrison tried to recruit Thornley to testify against Heindel, and Thornley refused. After that, Thornley is when he became a suspect, and that's when the testimony of, or the statement of Barbara Reed emerged, that she had seen Thornley with Oswald in the Bourbon House restaurant in late September of 1963, meeting with Oswald there. Of course, Thornley denied these accusations. So at that point, she became chief witness against Thornley, and also became part of Garrison's investigation team. Reed was running around with Harold Weisberg, interviewing different witnesses and kind of weaving together her own theories with Harold Weisberg related to the Garrison investigation, where Thornley was a key person in this cabal, this nexus of conspirators in New Orleans that hatched the Kennedy assassination, or were somehow involved in setting up Oswald and covering up the true participants in the assassination. How's that for a long-winded answer?
Good. But it didn't. I think I remember reading in your book. Didn't she actually almost convince Thornley that he did actually meet with Oswald in the restaurant at some point? That he might have been second guessing himself a little bit?
Yeah, actually, it was just a few days after after the assassination, once again, he was friends with Barbara Reed, so was Greg Hill. They'd go over to her house, and it was at that time that, a few days after the assassination, the newspapers came out with pictures of Oswald, and she was saying, I saw you with Oswald at the Bourbon House. We were there, and Thornley says, you did?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think I would have known Oswald, but she was so certain that she began convincing Thornley, well, maybe I didn't remember. I don't know. I think I would have known, but, Thornley was one to entertain a lot of ideas, and she's saying, well, why didn't I remember? Reed said, well, maybe you were brainwashed, and who knows? And that's the testimony he gave, before the Orleans parish grand jury that, well, yeah, she said she did, and I thought, well, maybe it is possible, but now I don't think it's possible, and people pour over that testimony in recent years. It's like, man, he's sure being wishy-washy here, but, I don't doubt he was, talking to his friends over the years, Thornley a lot of times was too honest.
Yeah, well, it'd be hard too, Adam. If this chick was his friend, and they hung out all the time, rather than some just random person that doesn't know anybody. It'd be hard coming from a friend to dismiss. If she's telling you, hey, remember, I could have sworn that guy was in here talking to you. I could see him second guessing himself a little bit. Or even that other little bit of a theory that you had, it might have been an Oswald lookalike, which is why he didn't actually recognize the guy as Oswald. It could have just been somebody he was chatting with or sitting near.
Yeah. Let's get to the second Oswald thing in a second here, but so afterwards, Barbara Reed told him to take care of him. He started talking to some of his friends in the French Quarter about that, and one of them was this journalist by the name of Clint Bolton, who was kind of Carrie's mentor as a writer. And if you look on the web, people call him the CIA journalist, all of this. I don't know if that was the case, but he asked people like Clint Bolton, Barbara Reed said this stuff about, that I was with Oswald. And Bolton, among others, said she's always imagining things. It's like she's in the center of every crazy thing that happens in the French Quarter, and she places herself in this and others. She was making things up or convincing herself to believe things that Barbara was always like the center of controversy. With the second Oswald deal, the Farrell House is the publisher of this book, and Adam Parfrey's the publisher there, and he's a big supporter, fan of John Armstrong's work. And I didn't really get into John Armstrong in one of the earlier drafts of this book, but I submitted it to Parfrey a year and a half ago or more, see if he was interested in publishing it. He said, well, what about John Armstrong's theory? They go, well, yeah, I know about that stuff, but this book's pretty convoluted as it is.
Yeah.
Trying to bring in that John Armstrong stuff. He said, well, if I'm going to publish it, I want you to address that. I said, okay, I'll look into it. And I talked to John Armstrong, and I'm glad I did, because it brought out that thing about Harvey and Lee. According to Armstrong, I won't get into his whole thesis, but he said that the Oswald that Thornley met up with at El Toro was Lee, and that the Harvey that was, the Oswald that was in New Orleans during that September period of '63 was Harvey. So, Thornley knew the Lee Oswald, and which explains why he might have not recognized the Harvey Oswald who was in New Orleans during that period. So, that kind of explained the thing. And, I looked into Armstrong's work, and, oh boy.
Yeah.
He covered his bases, that's for sure. He did, that's It's a big book. He has, I don't know, thousands of citations in there, and he mentions Thornley elsewhere in the book, but I think, a lot of that stuff, he was just basically repeating a lot of the stuff from Garrison's memos. Because when I talked to him, he basically dismissed Thornley as being important to the case. That's where, our discussions led to which Oswald was in New Orleans during that period, and Armstrong felt the same, that if Thornley did meet Oswald during that period, and it was Harvey, which explains why he wouldn't have recognized him.
Exactly. Yeah, because I always found it hard to understand, because I know from, like you said in your book, a lot of his fellow Marines, when he was in the Marines, remember and recall, Oswald, being interested in, quote, Marxism and communism and studying Russian. But I could never get past how somebody so hardly educated, I should put it. I mean, he jumped around from school to school to school, and I think he never graduated from high school. Lee Oswald, I'm talking about. With that much of an education, join the Marines, and then show up in Russia and be fluent to the point where he was mistaken as a native. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had such a mastery of the Russian language, both spoken and written, that it's inconceivable that he could have taught himself this level of Russian in a couple months, while in the Marines.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm sorry, I sidetracked us there. And something else, we were talking about Barbara Reed, sparked something in my head, that there's a Barbara Reed associated with the Texas School Book Depository also. And
What's the spelling?
I think it's Reeid.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, she was one of the office workers in the book depository.
Maybe she was in the sniper's perch.
Maybe. And she was the one that said she had saw Oswald on the first floor in a white T-shirt with a Coke as late as 12:25.
Yeah, I was familiar with that story. I didn't know her name was Barbara Reed.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, which is possible I'm not, but that name jumped out at me for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, just one more coincidence. So let's get back to Kerry Thornley in New Orleans. And there's an interesting allegation that he was visiting Marina or having an affair with Marina, which personally I don't buy. And there was an interesting thing you mentioned in there about how Garrison set up their testimony to coincide to see if he could get a reaction out of either one of them. Could you get into a little bit of that?
Yeah, they were both called before the grand jury to give their testimonies on the same day. I forget the exact date of that. It was early February of '68. And so, yeah, it was arranged, and this is according to Thomas Bethel, who was one of Garrison's investigators who later defected to the Clay Shaw side of things. But he said that that meeting had been arranged. It says this in other books that basically it was arranged that they would walk past each other in and out of the courtroom. And hopefully Garrison was looking for some kind of reaction on either one of their parts, then they admit their romantic relationship and spill the beans, but they have no recognition of each other. They questioned Marina after that. She once again confirmed that she did not recognize Kerry Thornley. There's a newspaper article I came across recently that talks about the testimonies. That's also the day that I believe Thomas Beckham provided his testimony, and also Dean Andrews. And going through this newspaper article, Kerry Thornley is his full name is Kerry Wendell Thornley, but in the newspaper article he's identified as Kerry Lee Thornley.
Oh.
And I thought, is this another one of the antics of Garrison? They leaked the newspaper that his name was Kerry Lee Thornley, just once again to kind of there's a wink and a nod that he's one of the Oswald Devils. Maybe an innocent mistake, but I see things like that and it's like, how'd that happen?
Well, they even tried to paint him as handing out hands-off Cuba flyers, didn't they?
Yeah, they tried to weave that together. Once again, I'm going off the top of my head, but he wasn't there when whoever it was picked those up, at the printing place. He didn't fit either Oswald's or Thornley's description. The guy went by the name of Osborne, so who knows, but Thornley wasn't there during that period, but once again, Garrison tried to link him to that. Thornley was arrested in '62 for hanging up some flyers, but he was working a lot of odd jobs during that time, so he had one job where he'd show up with a bunch of guys and they'd get picked up and they'd be given a bunch of flyers from merchants or whatever to go hang in places. So Thornley hung something on a telephone pole where he shouldn't have placed it, and apparently got arrested, which seems kind of odd, but Garrison made a lot of this, and he asked the arresting officers later, but they didn't remember what was on the flyer. Of course, Garrison started thinking it was one of these pro-Castro leaflets, so yeah, who knows, but they a lot of these things, it was like when they interviewed Thornley about this, you go through all the Garrison documents. I'm not sure if it's the grand jury testimony or another interview that Sciambra did with Thornley, but he asked him about those flyers. Thornley gave the names of all the people he worked for and associated with during that period, and he said he was hanging these things for merchants. Later, Sciambra or Alcott, one of those two, said Thornley was handing out leaflets for Birchers, as in the John Bircher Society, because they had misinterpreted or misheard the word merchants. And so, that led to the theory that he was involved in right-wing organizations like the John Birch Society. A lot of weird, funny, crazy, sketchy stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's what DAs do, man. They build a case, and if they can't, then they really, really reach for stuff. But so that pretty much nails it up, man.
You hear what they want to hear.
Oh, exactly. Now, Adam, if you'd be so kind as to point my listeners to where they could find out more about you, more about your books, buy your books.
Well, I'd be happy to. These books we've talked about, all of them are on Amazon. If you do Caught in the Crossfire, Adam Gorightly, take you to Amazon. There's also the Prankster and the Conspiracy, the earlier book. And I have a Amazon page, author page. I talked about Discordian materials. I have a website set up called The Story of Discordia, and occasionally I'll post on Thornley and the Garrison investigation. A lot of material not related to that. That's at historiadiscordia.com. There's adamgorightly.com. I'm all over the place, so, pretty easy to find with a, just punch that into Google, Adam Gorightly, Thornley.
Cool. And I would urge everybody to go check it out because, not only do you write about Kerry Thornley, but also, other cool stuff, interesting things, like the Manson family, just all kinds of the counterculture stuff that's really interesting to me from the 60s. If you're interested in the assassinations and everything going on with the 60s and, serial killers and, hell, you're even a musician, dude. You've put out some pretty pretty trippy music that I dig. And I'll put up links to all your stuff on our webpage here so that people can easily find it. And all they got to do is click a button and head over there and get it for themselves. Because people, the book is much more than just what we talked about here today, and it's really an important historical work when you're looking at Kerry Thornley. Like I said, a lot of this stuff in the book is from his own mouth, from his own writings, and it really goes a lot deeper than we went today. But I just wanted to keep it kind of assassination centric. But Kerry Thornley's a much deeper dude than that. But Adam, man, I appreciate everything you've done, sending me the books, coming on the show. I've had a really good time talking to you, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it too. Covered a lot of ground here. It's a good thing. Takes some time weaving through this maze of madness.
Yeah, well, that's one good thing about doing a podcast. I have no advertisers. So we got nothing but time here, brother.
I appreciate it, dude.
Hey, thank you, man. You've made it a birthday to remember. Believe me. Hang on the line for me, Adam, and I will talk us out here. Once again, thank you, Adam Gorightly, for joining me here on the Lone Gunman Podcast, episode number 48. This sumbitch is in the can, up to the satellite, beamed down directly to your ears, people. Peace.